Have you ever wondered why certain childhood memories resurface at the most inconvenient moments? Why do you sometimes feel emptiness where warmth should reside? Carl Gustav Jung, one of the 20th century's most influential psychologists, uncovered a truth that shattered our fundamental understanding of parenthood. Through his groundbreaking work on shadow psychology and the collective unconscious, Jung revealed that the maternal archetype possesses equal capacity for destruction and healing. This isn't an easy truth to accept, but if you want to understand why your relationships unfold as they do, you must confront the darker dimensions of motherhood. In his seminal work, Four Archetypes, Jung demonstrated that mothers don't always serve as sources of unconditional love, sometimes becoming the root of our deepest traumas instead. The maternal archetype contains two faces, light and shadow. The light brings love, care, security, while the shadow carries control, manipulation, emotional abandonment. This shadow side shapes entire generations incapable of authentic intimacy. Picture a small child crying in the night, needing warmth, safety, confirmation of being loved, but instead hearing, "Stop crying, there's no reason," or worse, silence. The mother, meant to be a sanctuary of security, becomes a source of terror, teaching the child that their needs don't matter, their emotions are wrong, that they must become someone else to earn love. Jung termed this the mother complex. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, he described how his own mother impacted his psyche, an emotionally unstable woman, often psychologically absent, leaving young Jung uncertain whether he'd find her happy or consumed by depression. This unpredictability shaped his later understanding of human psychology. But here lies something most people fail to grasp. A mother who doesn't love unconditionally is often herself a victim of identical patterns because her mother probably didn't love unconditionally either. This becomes an emotional inheritance passed down through generations. Jung wrote about this as sins of the fathers visited upon the sons, but the truth reveals that these are often sins of mothers transmitted to daughters and sons alike. I once knew a woman who repeatedly told me, "I don't know how to love my son. I see that I'm hurting him, but I can't do otherwise." At 40, she finally understood the problem wasn't her son, but herself. Her mother never showed tenderness. She couldn't recall a single warm gesture or moment of feeling unconditionally loved. How could she give what she'd never received? Jung discovered that children of such mothers develop what he called the false self. They learn to be someone they're not in order to survive, becoming perfect actors in their own lives. Externally, everything appears fine. They're obedient, achieve success, function in society, but internally they feel hollow. They don't know who they truly are because they were never permitted to be themselves. In The Analysis of Dreams, Jung described a patient whose mother was a perfectionist. Every mistake brought punishment, every imperfection met with criticism. As an adult, this woman couldn't make decisions without paralyzing fear of error. She lived her entire life trying to please a mother who existed only in her head. This represents the paradox of motherhood Jung wrote about. The mother, who should give wings to her child, sometimes clips them so effectively that the child never learns to fly. Yet she does this not from malice or intent to harm, but because she herself never learned to soar. Do you recognize these patterns in your own life? Perhaps you can't fully trust people, constantly seek approval from others, feel you must be perfect to deserve love. All these may be consequences of the maternal archetype's shadow side. Jung noted in Symbols of Transformation that the unconscious knows no time. Childhood trauma lives within us as if it happened yesterday. The 5-year-old child who didn't receive love still dwells in our adult psyche, continues crying, searching for that love never obtained. However, Jung didn't stop at diagnosis, discovering also the path to healing, which he called the individuation process. This represents a long, painful journey toward discovering your authentic self, meaning confrontation with the shadow. Those parts of ourselves we'd prefer not to see, examining our childhood without rose-colored glasses, understanding what truly occurred. I remember a conversation with a man who for years couldn't form lasting relationships. Every woman who approached seemed threatening. In therapy, he discovered his mother was extremely possessive, controlling every step, friendship, decision, claiming she acted from love while actually operating from fear of loneliness. As an adult, this man subconsciously feared every woman would want to control him as his mother had. In the Red Book, Jung wrote that the greatest tragedy isn't that some mothers don't love their children, but that they often don't realize they don't love, believing they act from love. The mother who criticizes for the child's good, who's overprotective from concern, who manipulates emotionally because she loves. These are all manifestations of the maternal archetype's shadow. How do you recognize if you were victim to such a mother? Jung described several characteristic symptoms. First, difficulty maintaining close relationships, either excessive attachment or fleeing from intimacy. Second, chronic feelings of emptiness and misunderstanding, sensing nobody truly knows you. Third, perfectionism or its opposite, complete surrender, trying to be perfect to earn love or giving up because you'll never be good enough. Fourth, problems with personal identity, not knowing who you are when nobody's watching. Fifth, difficulty expressing emotions, either disproportionate outbursts or complete inability to show feelings. Sixth, seeking partners resembling mother, equally controlling or emotionally unavailable. Jung wrote that the worst thing a mother can do is make a child feel responsible for her happiness. The child who must be strong because mama is weak, perfect because mama is ashamed, abandon dreams because mama needs them to stay. These are all forms of emotional child exploitation. In analytical psychology, Jung described a 40-year-old man still living with his mother, not from lack of money for his own place, but because his mother had spent his entire life telling him she couldn't survive without him, that he was the only one who understood her, that if he left, she'd die of grief. This man never married, never had children, never realized his dreams, living not his own life but his mother's. But here's the truth Jung taught us all. You're not doomed to repeat your parents' patterns. You can break this chain, but it requires enormous courage. Courage to face truth, feel pain you've tried to avoid for years. Forgive not because the parent deserves it, but because you deserve freedom. In Modern Man in Search of a Soul, Jung wrote that healing doesn't mean forgetting, but understanding. You don't have to love your mother if she hurt you, but you must understand why she acted that way. Probably she was wounded herself, doing the best she could, though it wasn't good enough. I knew a therapist who said something that stayed with me forever. The hardest part is that sometimes we must mourn the mother we never had, the childhood that never existed, the love we never received. Only then can we begin building a new life. Jung believed everyone possesses healing potential, but this requires shadow work, confronting those parts of ourselves we prefer to ignore. If you grew up with a mother who didn't love unconditionally, you probably carry anger you fear, sadness that seems too deep to feel, needs that appear too selfish to express. But these emotions are part of you, and until you feel, acknowledge, and integrate them, they'll control your life from the unconscious. Jung called this the return of the repressed. If you don't consciously process pain, it returns as depression, anxiety, relationship problems, addictions. In 2 essays on analytical psychology, Jung described the importance of understanding the difference between love and need. A truly loving mother wants what's best for the child, even if it means the child leaves and finds happiness elsewhere. a mother who doesn't love but wants what's best for herself. Did your mother allow you to be yourself? Did she accept your emotions, even difficult ones? Did she support your dreams, even when they differed from hers? Could she apologize when wrong? Could she show her own weaknesses without burdening you with responsibility for her problems? If most answers are negative, you probably grew up with the maternal archetype's shadow. But this doesn't mean you're condemned to suffering. Jung believed in the human psyche's regenerative power, in our ability to become the parents we never had. He called this process symbolic birth, the moment you stop being your parent's child and become parent to yourself. This means learning to give yourself what you didn't receive: love, acceptance, support, patience. It's not easy because it means taking full responsibility for your life. In Dreams, Reflections, Memories, Jung wrote that the greatest tragedy isn't that some people have difficult childhoods, but that most never outgrow that childhood, living as wounded children in adult bodies, reacting to contemporary situations from the perspective of a 5-year-old, feeling rejected. How do you begin the healing process? Jung suggested several steps. First, acknowledge the truth about your childhood. Don't idealize or minimize, but see what really happened. Second, feel the emotions connected to these experiences: anger, sadness, disappointment, everything you've tried to suppress for years. Third, understand that your mother was also human with her own limitations, traumas, problems. This doesn't excuse her behavior, but helps understand why she acted that way. Fourth, learn to give yourself what you didn't receive: love, acceptance, support. Fifth, learn to love differently than you were loved. If you have children, you can break the chain, becoming the parent you wished you'd had. Jung believed each generation has the chance to heal the wounds of the previous one. I remember a woman who came to therapy because she feared having children, saying, "I'm afraid I'll be the same kind of mother as mine." Her mother was cold, critical, emotionally unavailable. Through therapy, this woman understood that fear of repeating patterns was already the first step toward breaking them. People without awareness repeat. People with awareness can choose. Jung wrote that the maternal archetype is so powerful because it's connected to our earliest experiences. An infant is completely dependent on the mother, and if she's unstable, unpredictable, or emotionally unavailable, the child learns the world is dangerous, people can't be trusted, love is conditional, not a gift. But Jung discovered something remarkable. People who endured the worst experiences with their own mothers often become the best parents because they know how important unconditional love is, how much children need security, acceptance for who they are. This is the paradox Jung often wrote about. Our greatest wounds can become our greatest gifts, but only when we have courage to heal them. If you ignore your wounds, you'll pass them on. If you heal them, you become a source of healing for others. In Psychology and Alchemy, Jung described a process called opus contra naturam, work against nature, meaning conscious interruption of the natural course of events. If the natural course is trauma transmission from generation to generation, then work against nature means breaking the cycle, requiring enormous emotional maturity. You must stop blaming your mother for all your problems. Yes, she may have hurt you, been a bad mother, but now you're an adult, responsible for your own life. You can spend your entire life as a victim of your childhood, or become the hero of your own story. Jung believed everyone carries within them the archetype of the good mother. Even if you never experienced this in reality, you intuitively know how maternal love should look. That part of you capable of being patient, understanding, supportive, able to give yourself and others what all children need. To reach this part of yourself, you must pass through shadow, confront anger toward your mother, feel sadness over unlove, accept that your childhood wasn't what it should have been. This is painful but necessary. Jung wrote that there is no dawn without night. You can't reach light without passing through darkness, which in this case is truth about your childhood, your mother, what you didn't receive. After passing through this darkness, you'll discover something amazing. You're stronger than you thought, capable of loving despite not being loved, giving despite not receiving. This is humanity's true strength, the ability to transcend our own limitations. Jung described a patient who grew up with a schizophrenic mother, his childhood filled with trauma, unpredictability, fear. But as an adult, he became one of his generation's best psychiatrists because he understood suffering better than anyone, knew how important it was for patients to feel safe and understood. This is the transformative power Jung wrote about throughout his life. We can either remain prisoners of our past or use it as foundation for building a better future. But the choice belongs to us. If you're reading these words and recognize your story in them, I want you to know one thing. You're not doomed to repeat your mother's mistakes, not condemned to live in the shadow of her imperfection. You can choose a different life, become the person you needed as a child. Jung believed everyone possesses the potential to be a good enough parent to themselves and others. You don't need to be perfect, you need to be authentic, present. Love, not because someone deserves it, but because you've decided to love. This is Jung's final lesson. Love isn't a feeling you either have or don't have. Love is a decision you make every day. A decision to see another person as valuable, be patient with their mistakes, support their growth even if it means they'll leave. Most importantly, the decision to love yourself as you'd want to be loved, because until you love yourself, you can't truly love anyone else. Until you give yourself what you need, you'll expect others to give it to you. And that's the path to disappointment and new wounds. But this isn't the end of what Jung discovered about motherhood's shadow side. In correspondence with Freud, he wrote about the maternal archetype's influence, not just on childhood, but our entire adult lives. Every relationship we form, every decision we make, every paralyzing fear, all can be echoes of our earliest experiences with mother. Jung observed that adults who grew up with emotionally unavailable mothers often develop an abandonment complex, living in constant fear of being left, but paradoxically, their behavior often provokes exactly what they fear. So terrified of abandonment, they become excessively clingy or completely withdraw. I knew a man who asked the same question in every relationship: when will you leave me? Not if, but when. His partners initially tried to reassure him, promised they loved him, but his constant need for validation became so exhausting, it actually drove them away. His deepest fear was fulfilled not because he was unpleasant or unlovable, but because his fear controlled his behavior. In therapy, this man discovered his mother was a chronic alcoholic, and he never knew what state he'd find her in. Sometimes loving and tender, sometimes aggressive and unpredictable, sometimes simply absent, physically at home, but mentally elsewhere. This taught him love was unpredictable, dangerous, could vanish at any moment. In Relations Between the Ego and the Unconscious, Jung wrote that such experiences create what he called an inner critical mother, a voice in our heads constantly telling us we're not good enough, must try harder, will be rejected if we make mistakes. This inner critical mother is often more ruthless than our actual mother ever was, because we've adopted her worst traits and amplified them. Our childhood ego, trying to understand why Mama didn't love us, concluded it must be our fault, and this conclusion stayed for life. Jung described a patient who as a child heard from her mother, "If it weren't for you, I could be happy." This single sentence destroyed her entire life, and as an adult she felt responsible for everyone's happiness she encountered, couldn't say no, set boundaries, lived in constant guilt. But Jung discovered something even more destructive than open criticism. The most toxic are mothers who love conditionally, saying, "I love you, but you must be good, but you can't be angry, but you must succeed." Such children learn their authentic selves, with all emotions, needs, imperfections, aren't worthy of love, learn to wear masks for acceptance, often wearing them their entire lives, forgetting who they are underneath. In Psychological Types, Jung wrote about how different personality types react to lack of maternal love. Introverts often withdraw into themselves, creating rich inner lives as escape from painful reality. Extroverts do the opposite, throw themselves into the world, trying to find in others what they didn't get at home. Regardless of personality type, the effect is similar: chronic feelings of emptiness and misunderstanding. Jung called this the wound of the soul, invisible but affecting every aspect of life. I remember a woman who came to therapy because she felt like a ghost. She functioned in life, had work, friends, hobbies, but didn't feel real. "It's like I'm watching my life from outside, never truly present," she said. This is a classic symptom of what Jung called disconnection from one's own soul. When you learn as a child that your authentic self isn't acceptable, you begin living as if outside yourself, doing what's necessary to survive, but losing contact with who you truly are. Jung believed everyone carries within them an inner child, the part that remembers what it was like to be small, helpless, completely dependent on others. If this inner child wasn't loved, it doesn't disappear, continues living within us, crying, searching for that love never received. The problem is, most adults try to find this love from other adults, expecting partners, friends, children to give what they didn't get from mother. But this is impossible. Nobody can turn back time and give you the childhood you didn't have. In Memories, Dreams, Thoughts, Jung wrote that true healing begins when you stop seeking a parent outside and start becoming a parent to yourself, learning to give yourself what you need: patience with mistakes, support in difficulties, love even without perfection. How do you practically do this? Jung suggested several techniques. First, dream work. Our dreams often show symbols related to motherhood: houses, gardens, nurturing animals. If your dreams feature images of destroyed houses, wild animals, or being lost, this may reflect your internal experiences with mother. Second, Jung encouraged writing letters, never to be sent. A letter to your mother, saying everything you'd want to tell her. To yourself as a child, giving the support you needed. To yourself as an adult, forgiving all mistakes made trying to earn love. Third, Jung believed in the power of active imagination, a technique of consciously entering dialogue with internal figures. You can imagine a conversation with your inner child. Ask what it needs, feels, fears. Most important in the healing process is understanding one fundamental truth. Your worth as a human being doesn't depend on how you were loved, whether your mother was good or bad, whether you made mistakes or were perfect. You're worthy of love simply because you exist. Jung wrote that one of the most important things we can learn is the difference between love and need. Need is, I love you because you make me happy. Love is, I love you and want you to be happy even if it means you won't be with me. A mother who loves from need uses the child to regulate her own emotions. When sad, the child must comfort her. When lonely, keep her company. When stressed, the child must be good. This is emotional exploitation of the child, even if the mother doesn't do it consciously. A truly loving mother allows the child to be themselves, experience their own emotions, make mistakes, learn from experience, doesn't use the child to meet her own emotional needs. Jung observed that children of mothers who loved from need often become adults who can't distinguish love from control, thinking if someone controls them, it means love, or conversely, they try to control others, thinking this means love. I knew a couple who'd been together 20 years, but their relationship was full of drama, constant fighting, mutual control, jealousy over everything. When I suggested they might separate, both were shocked. But we love each other. not understanding that what they called love was actually toxic codependency. In therapy, they discovered both grew up with controlling mothers. His mother checked his pockets, read his diary, decided who he could befriend. Her mother did the same. For both, control meant interest, and interest meant love. Jung wrote that one of the most important steps in healing the relationship with mother is understanding she probably did the best she could. Not so you should forgive her. That's your decision. But so this understanding helps you stop taking her behavior personally. Your mother wasn't bad because she didn't love you. She probably didn't love because she herself wasn't loved, wasn't controlling because she wanted to harm you, but because she feared you'd leave her, wasn't emotionally unavailable because she didn't care, but because she never learned how to express emotions. This doesn't excuse her behavior, but helps understand it wasn't about you. It was about her own wounds, fears, limitations. You as a child were innocent, deserved love, not for being good or perfect, but simply for existing. Jung believed when we understand this emotionally, not just intellectually, true transformation can occur. We stop living reactive lives responding to the past, begin living creative lives, building the future based on our values and choices. But transformation isn't easy. Jung called it second birth. As painful as the first, requiring death of the old self defined by pain, lack, need for approval, and birth of a new self defined by love, abundance, inner worth. In Ion, Jung wrote about the importance of not striving for perfection in this process. The goal isn't becoming a perfect parent to yourself, but a good enough one, patient with your own mistakes, supportive of your dreams, loving despite imperfections. Jung also observed an interesting phenomenon. People going through healing their relationship with mother often begin seeing other relationships in new light, understanding that partners, friends, children also have wounds, needs, limitations. This leads to deeper empathy but also healthier boundaries. When you stop expecting others to give you what you didn't get from mother, you can enter relationships from a position of abundance, not lack. Give love from fullness rather than expecting it in return. Jung believed this is true maturity, the ability to love not from need but from fullness, and that such maturity is possible for everyone regardless of their childhood. This is Carl Gustav Jung's vision, bold and hopeful simultaneously, showing us the dark truth about motherhood, but also the path to light. Our goal on this channel isn't imposing this vision as the only truth, but provoking thought and providing tools for self-understanding. In this video, I presented Carl Gustav Jung's vision of the maternal archetype's shadow side. A bold, deep proposal that breaks traditional explanations of family relationships. Here our goal isn't imposing truths, but provoking reflection and providing information. We don't claim this vision is the only correct one. We simply want to present this thinker's thesis as intellectual provocation, critical thinking, or instruction in a striking but accessible way, not inclining anyone toward disbelief or blind acceptance. The intention is to open space for critical thinking, encourage reflection, and allow each person to decide what to believe. We present not absolute truth, but a philosophical, historical, or theoretical proposal worth knowing and questioning. Now I want to know, which vision do you choose to believe? Comment below if this video helped you in any way.